are fantastic pants. I saw these a couple months ago. I was at Marshall's. Any of you guys go to Marshall's? My wife is always talking about them, and I never understood what it was. And then I went there with her, and I was looking, and I was just kind of browsing, and then I saw these pants. And I just went to them. I was just like a magnet, just drawn to them. I saw something incredible. I had to go check it out. And I looked at them, and they were only $15, and they're Levi's, and they're brand new. And I said, this is why this place is incredible. This is why Manessa is always talking about this. Because Levi's are like $55 on the cheap side, and they were $15, brand new. And I saw it, and I was a witness, and I was just like, this is incredible. And now everywhere I go, I tell people about Marshall's, and I preach Marshall's. Wherever I go, I say, if you need jeans, go to Marshall's. He'll hook you up. I don't know who Marshall is, but he's got good stuff. He's got hookups. Have any of you guys ever been a legal witness or had to give your testimony to a police officer or something like that? How many of you guys have ever seen, say, maybe a car accident or something and you had to give a statement? How many of you have seen a car accident? How many of you have been in a car accident? You've been hit. I know. I heard it. It's great. It's my story time. Yeah. I went through my life, and I kept feeling like I kept being so close to being a witness to incredible events, and I kept missing it. I was tallying them up, and I have 6 events that I remember where if I had just been looking up, I would have had to give my statement to the police. But instead, I was either sleeping or distracted and looking at something else. When I was in college, I drove a van as a shuttle service. So I was on the road all the time, and I would drive from like midnight to 4 a.m. So there was a lot of drunk drivers on the road, so we would see a lot of drunk driving accidents. And one time I was co-piloting, and I was looking down. This car zoomed past us, through a red light, went off across the street, and went head on to someone else. I didn't even see it. I'm just down here like looking. The other guy's like, oh my gosh! And I look over, I'm like, what? And there's just smoking wrecks everywhere. And I'm like, I missed that. And then the cops come, ask me for my statement, and I was looking at a piece of paper. But it looks like they got in an accident. I had another time where I was in one van. We were on one side of the street. The other Snap van was on the other side. They got T-boned by a drunk driver who then drove off. And so we took off, and we were trying to chase them. And we were like, okay, which way did they go? We're talking on the radios. We never saw them. We lost them. The cops lost them. Nobody ever found them. Another drunk driving accident that I missed, I was sitting in my room, not looking out the window, and I heard a car go, vroom, right by our apartment, like really fast. Now, our apartment is about 2 houses away from an intersection, so they went, vroom, right into the intersection, full speed, T-boned someone else. And I got out of my apartment, went down because I heard the crash, and I just saw this line of people getting out of the car because they were all drunk leaving a party, and they just bailed on the driver who was just like passed out on the wheel, and they all just left. And then the other people were like hurt and like bleeding and stuff. And again, I didn't see it. Some of the cops showed up. I said, I was just out here helping people. Another time, like I have a lot of these examples, right? Another time we were driving home from Georgia with my family. I was in the middle seat reading a book. Up in front of us, a car gets swiped in the back. It spins out on the highway, goes into the guardrail. Totally miss it, don't see anything. My parents are like, oh my gosh, they pull over to help. And then the cop comes to our car. He's like asking him for a statement. I'm just like, I didn't see it. Most recently, 2 weekends ago, Mother's Day, Manessa and I are driving home from New Hampshire, which is awesome. Have you guys ever been to New Hampshire? Yeah. It's so free up there. The air is so much cleaner. So we were up in New Hampshire, and we're coming back late. I had Manessa drive because I was tired. And as I was buckling up and leaning the seat back, I was having these thoughts. I was thinking, what happens if we get into a head-on collision and I have my seat back? I'm just going to slide under the seat. And I was like, what are the odds of that happening? That never happens. Apart from a time like 2 months ago when I was driving and hit a deer and hit into a guardrail head-on. And so we're driving for a while, and then Manessa kind of wakes me up from my sleep and my stupor, and she just screams, and then I experience this. This is the only way I can possibly think of describing what it felt like when I woke up. Sound.
Arrival at Vulcan in 5 seconds.
This is me
4,
waking up.
3.
I'm like, what's happening, Manessa? What?
Remain
There's cars all over the road, like smoking. Vanessa's dodging, weaving in between traffic. She's just screaming. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die. I'm trying to hit the blinker so people don't rear end us. I'm just like, what's gonna happen? And then we're like, and we see this car right in the middle of us, right in front of the road, like right in the middle of the lane that just smashed up. And Vanessa's like, ah! She just turns around to the side of it. Ah! And we just barely miss it. And we pull over. And then I just give her that look. I was like, what the heck just happened? Right? That was intense. Is your heart pounding a little bit? That was me right there. I'm just Spock. I'm like, what the heck just happened? And so we pull over and we get out of, I get out of the car. And this has happened so many times that I have an emergency kit for the car that I'm ready to go for these sort of things. So I grab my kit, I put on my reflective vest, I get my flashlight. I start going to the cars, checking people out, seeing if they're okay. And the guy right in front of us is like, there was a wrong way driver. And I just barely hit him and we spun out. And then he kept going and he eventually hit someone and died. He hit someone straight on. I don't know if you guys heard about it in the news. It was on 495. It was terrible. So I helped with him and then I went and helped two ladies in their car. And then I kept walking back and the cops weren't there for a little bit. And so by the time the cops got there, they were kind of in the back. They went immediately to where the back of the accident was. And so I walked up. And I'm walking up, I got my reflective vest on, I got my flashlight, like a heavy-duty flashlight, and the cop just turns around from one of the cars, and he just beams me with his light. He says, who's this guy? What do you say to that? Steve? And so I was like, I was just here helping people. And he says, were you a witness? I said, no, I didn't see anything. Do you need any help? He's like, no, we're good, you can go home. I'm like, okay. So I just left. I'm like, Manessa, we can go home now. It's okay. The police are here. But nobody cared that I was there or helping people or gave people water or was a hero because I didn't see it happen. I wasn't an actual witness. I feel like a lot of times in our spiritual life, we bounce around and we get so close to experiencing something that someone else experiences. And we kind of bounce around hoping that we'll be able to rub off of someone else's event. And we go to event to event to event, hoping that they've created this experience and that we can see something there. And maybe you've been to a conference or something, it feels like everyone else around you was experiencing something and you're just sitting there and you're like, got nothing. I'm just missing it. And you go to the conference and it's like, wow, God healed that person over there. Or you go and you have this incredible experience somewhere else and God shows up and it's like, wow, God really did that for someone else over there. And you just feel like you're missing all these experiences. And you're like, what is happening? Why am I never a witness to these events? Why am I never seeing what's actually happening? Why do I feel like I'm missing everything in life? Has anyone ever felt like that before? Like you're just kind of skating through and you're trying to fit in somewhere and you just don't understand what's happening around you. You're trying to figure out your plan, do things your way, and it's not working. The way you're trying to do things and experience things are not working. And I want to share a story with you from the book of John, the book of John. The Gospel of John. If you have the Bible on your phone, you can whip it out. Or there's a couple of them under the seats if you didn't bring one. It's John chapter 9. It's the fourth book on there. I don't know exactly what page it is. So you can follow along. We're going to be in John chapter 9. We're going to read almost the entire thing. I try to limit myself to one passage because I have the problem where I always have way too much to say. You guys have probably figured that out by now. I go long versus going short. That's my problem. So I try to figure out one passage. So today I just have one chapter, right? That counts. Just one little chapter. Right. So this story right here is about someone who witnesses something that is the most. Are you okay, Ryan? We can talk about it later in the group. This guy had never, ever been a witness to anything before. He never seen anything crazy. He never had any of those crazy experiences people talk about. He felt like he was missing out on everything in life. If there was an accident that happened right in front of him, no one would ever ask him for his testimony because he was blind. He was blind from birth. He couldn't see anything. He basically just sat his whole life and been a beggar on a corner of a street, waiting and asking for money, trying to figure out where he fits into life and knowing that he's missing something, but he doesn't even know what it is because he can't see it. And so we're going to read from John chapter 9, and this kicks right off. And so I'll read this first verse, and then we'll kind of give some background to the story of how we got to where we are right now in this passage. So the very first verse, verse 1, says, as he passed by, this is Jesus, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? All right, so we see Jesus. He's walking. He sees a man that's blind from birth. His disciples ask him a question. What happened right before this story? What happened right before the story? Why is Jesus walking? Where is he coming from? Who is Jesus? What's going on? Why am I here at Elevate? All of these questions and more will be answered in the next 20, 30 minutes. So anyway, Jesus, right before this, had been in the temple. So back in the day, this was their church. It was a huge building in Jerusalem, and he'd been preaching there. People were showing up to hear him speak, to hear what he had to say. And basically what he said that day, people did not like. He came out and he claimed to be God. And people flipped out and they tried to kill him. And so Jesus just got kicked out of the temple. He had to run out. It says he hid himself and ran out. And so he has just basically gotten kicked out of the Jewish temple system where they're like, you came in here, it's cool, you said some cool things, but you can't go off claiming to be God. Nobody does that. You're crazy. Out of here. And so he had to run to not get killed, to escape with his life. And so right after that, he comes upon the situation. Now, what did they freak out about him saying? Now, when he was in there saying he was God, basically what he said was, I am the light of the world. He says, you guys are in darkness and I'm in light. If you're looking at me, you can see light. I have come into you to bring light into your world. And people said, we like how things are right now. We feel like we understand everything. We don't need any more light around here. Thank you very much. Die. And so he had to run out. And so what happens? He sees this man born blind, and the disciples ask him this question. Now, this might seem like a weird question, but at the time, there was two schools of thoughts for blindness. They tried to figure out a way to why everything happened, basically, and that went back to God. So if you're born blind, there were two schools of thoughts, either that your parents sinned, so if you're born blind, your parents did something so terrible that there was a curse on you and that your child is born blind, or that you somehow, when you were in the womb, managed to sin. Like, you're like, take that, Mom, blind. So they're asking Jesus, what is it? Which one of these two is it? Why is it like this? And Jesus, in typical Jesus fashion, just rocks their boat and says, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. This is what actually happened. Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents. Both of your premises are wrong. But that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. He just got kicked out of the temple for saying this. The disciples got to be like, all right, zip it, Jesus. You almost got us killed, man. Enough of this. And Jesus says, I am the light of the world. The reason that this man was born blind was to create an opportunity for me to be glorified in their life. I only have one point that's going to be at the end of this message because I just want to really hit that one home. But if there was a sub point right here that we could take out of this text, your problems, your greatest obstacles, your things that you think most disqualify you from knowing God, from getting anywhere in life, are put in your life to direct glory to God. And that might be through you persevering through it and keeping on when all odds are against you, when you have a disability or something and all odds are against you. Everyone says you'll never make it. And you just say, I'm just going to do everything I can to glorify God through this. It could be that maybe you have an addiction and God wants to take that away from you so that you will never be able to say, I deserve to live. I'm a good person, because you know you would be nothing if God had not come in and taken that out of your life. There's a myriad of things. I could go on and on and on and on again. But your problem, the thing that is your greatest obstacle, your struggle right now, is strategically placed in your life to draw glory to God. Now, some of you probably hear this and you say, that is why I hate God. I totally understand that. That's an extremely natural reaction, because when you are living life trying to bring glory to you, your obstacles are not glorifying to you, and you say, this sucks. Why do I have this hand? But when you start looking at what can I do to glorify God through my life, you can just take those things and you say, God, take this and use it for your glory. I don't even care what it does for me. Take it and use it for you. So what does Jesus do next? Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. So a couple things about the day that they're in, because this sounds not impressive at all. Basically, they're on a Sabbath day, which back in the Jewish traditions, you could not do anything. There's theories about the amount of distances that they estimate Jesus walked on this day was breaking a law. The very fact that he worked and spat on the dirt and made some mud right here, he was breaking the laws right then in the Jewish days. The fact that he's about to do what he's going to do is breaking a law. So then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So I love this because has this blind guy said anything yet? No, he's literally just sitting there on the corner. He's blind. He can hear things going on. He hears a commotion. He was not at the temple. He doesn't know what's going on. People just are walking in front of him. He hears this conversation. People are talking about him. Like, he's probably used to people talking every day and sitting there and saying, hey, so what did you do in the womb? What did your parents do? You must have had some awful parents. He used to people just talking. He doesn't say anything when that's happening. And Jesus just walks up to him into his little bubble, into his little world. And as a blind guy, your personal space bubble is pretty small, because you can't tell if people are like in your space. Jesus gets right up in his space. Not just his space, he rubs mud on his eyes. Like, how much more in your face is that? Like, you touch someone's hand, your handshake, you say, okay, we got this. I'm going to wash my hands. It's going to be cool. You don't walk up to someone, spit on your hands, and then touch their eyes. Nobody does that. Jesus gets all up in his space, doesn't even ask him if he wants to be healed. He just says, hey, go wash. And then Jesus takes a hike and he leaves. And this guy is left sitting there. My eyes hurt. What had just happened? And he's blind, number one. He's still blind. Nothing's happened. He's just got mud on his face. He's blind, and Jesus says, go find this pool and take a bath. What? So this guy he's sitting here and he has a choice. He can say, well, I look a little dirty, so that'll probably get me some extra money today. Or he can get up, he can stumble blindly and do what Jesus commanded him, not even really understanding or knowing who Jesus is. Like, maybe he's heard rumors or something about Jesus, but this is his first experience with him. Or he can stumble blindly following what Jesus asked him to do to this pool and wash himself and just see what happens. And this is what he does. So he went and he washed and he came back seeing. Can you imagine that walk where you're stumbling along the city and you're trying to find this pool and you're asking for directions and people are saying, hey, blind man, get back on your corner. Like, people are giving him money. Like, he's like, I don't need money. I need directions. I need to go somewhere. Said, where do you have to go? You're blind. You got nothing going on. It's like, I need to take a bath. They're like, well, you do stink. So, okay, over here. He gets to this pool, which other people are filling up their water basins in. I looked up pictures. They found it a couple years ago, this pool, that it's really cool if you look up the pool of Siloam. And so the people are washing their clothes there. They're getting water for drinking. They're maybe taking a bath. And he just walks into the water. Maybe someone guides him down the steps, because there's just these granite or limestone, whatever it is there, steps. And he walks into the pool and he washes his eyes and he just whoosh, flips his hair up and he can see. Like, what if you're that guy doing your laundry next to him? Like, you're watching him, because most blind people don't just go swimming in the middle of the day. And you're like, what are you doing here, buddy? Okay. All right, Jesus told you to come here. Yeah, you got to wash your face. Okay, cool. He goes under and he's like, I can see now. You're like, a good one. Magic trick, right? Show on Thursday. Nice. It's like, no, dude, I was literally blind and now I can see. And he runs back home. And the mind-blowing thing here is, and which I love, I was reading this story and I just loved it. The neighbors and those who had seen him before, so he gets back, before as a beggar, were saying, oh, it's not up there. Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, it is he. Others says, no, but he is like him. They're having this whole debate of like, you think that's a blind guy that's like jumping around and like screaming? Do you think so? And some people are like, yeah, it looks like him. I saw him this morning, but he was blind. And then other people are like, nah, it just looks like him. And then he's sitting there saying, he kept saying, like repeatedly, like not just one time, multiple times. He kept saying, I am the man. So they say to him, then how are your eyes open? Like, what is going on? Why can you see right now? And they brought him to the Pharisees. This is kind of like their legal authorities of the day, is the religious authorities. So they brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. The next thing is, he answered, the man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and said to me, go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, where is he? He answered, I do not know. They're like, hey, this guy that just healed you, where is he? I have no idea. He's not, I was blind, so he could be here, but I don't know because I've never seen him before. And so they take him to the Pharisees, which is like dragging him to the court or anybody who's got any authority. And they're like, what's going on? So they bring him to the Pharisees. And now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes, which we talked about before. So the Pharisees again asked him how he had received his sight. And he said to them, he put mud on my eyes and I washed and I see. It's just getting shorter. It's just like he put mud in my eyes, I washed, and now I see. Like, it really wasn't that complicated. Like, go try it yourself. It's awesome. So some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others said, how can a man who is a sinner do such signs? And there was a division among them. So they said again to the blind man, what do you say about him, since he has opened your eyes? He said, he is a prophet. So I love it, because this is exactly what we do as people. We see something incredible happen, and we're like, you know what we need to do? We need a committee. We need to discuss this in a reasonable fashion. Okay, so you're saying you're struggling with this, and then Jesus came into your life, and now you're not. All right, well, let's go through. What were you doing on the day you met Jesus? Okay, yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, you were praying. Yeah, okay. Right, I've heard that one before. And then he just showed up in your bedroom and now you say you're healed. Okay, yep, all right, cool. All right, well, actually, I'm looking back in your file and it says you prayed about this a long time ago and you actually started a course. So I think this was actually the course and not Jesus. And you're like, no, but he showed up, he was there and it was incredible and I felt him. Or you're like, I went to a conference and I felt him. It was like real and my heart started beating really fast and I don't understand what happened. And like, I felt like I was glowing. And then people are like, wow, yeah, you were around a lot of people. Yeah. You know, there was a lot of people. That's probably why you felt like that. You're like, I've seen the Patriots play. Like, I'd never glowed before, but like, I know what happened. And so they start trying to figure out what happened. And they're just saying like, how could this Jesus guy be good? Because it's Sunday and like everyone knows you don't do good things on Sunday. And so who do you think he is? I think he's a prophet. So he doesn't even know who he is, but he thinks he's someone. So they don't believe him. You know, how many of you guys have ever heard someone say God did something in their life and you just didn't believe him? You're like, oh, that's nice. So they don't believe him that he's been born blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, is this your son who you say was born blind? How then does he now see? So they have to call in the parents. And so his parents answered, we know that this is our son and that he was born blind. But how he now sees, we do not know. Nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He will speak for himself. If I was this guy, this is about the point where I would start to think, this is not going how I imagined this would go when I came home and I was really excited. So basically, no one believes him. His parents just said, We don't know, ask him. Like, they're not even really excited. And we start to see, why is this everyone's reaction to this amazing, incredible story? And John is awesome because he gives us a little insight. It's in parentheses. It's just like, just to explain what's happening right now. His parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone should confess Jesus to be Christ, he was to be put out of the synagogue. Therefore, his parents said, he is of age, ask him. This guy just got totally bailed on by his parents because they were afraid they wouldn't be able to go to church anymore if they came out and said, yeah, it was Jesus. They were just totally disowned what had just happened. They've raised this kid. They've struggled with issues their whole life. Was it our sin? Was it his sin? People have made fun of them their whole time. They have this miraculous experience, and they just completely distance themselves from him and say, we don't know, it's on him. We don't want any part of this. Because they're afraid of what other people are going to think. And so, for a second time, they called the man who had been blind and said to him, give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. They give him an option. They say, hey, just say it wasn't Jesus. Say Jesus, even if it was Jesus, say there must be something wrong with him. Say, agree with us. Say that there's something wrong because they just tried to kill Jesus. They don't like him, obviously. Jesus has been calling them out for all their sins. And they say, here's an opt-out, man. Like, say you're with us. Say, I don't know what happened, but I know he's not right. It was the Sabbath. Obviously, he broke a rule. He's a terrible person. And he answered, whether he is a sinner, it's actually still on there. Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. They said to him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? And he's like, this is the third time they asked him this question. And he answered them. He's getting frustrated. He says, I have told you already, and you would not listen. Do you also, do you want to hear it again? Like, it wasn't that complicated. Do you also want to become his disciples? And they reviled him. That's made fun of. They just mocked him. They reviled him, saying, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not even know where he comes from. They're saying, man, we got the law. We've been following Moses for thousands of years. We got everything down. We don't need anybody else. Why would you even bother following this guy? What is in that for you? And the man just gets so sarcastic, and I love sarcasm in the Bible. It's just awesome. He's dripping. Like, he was blind and now he can see. He's got a little swag, right? Like, he's got a little swag. And so the man answered, why, this is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. You guys have been telling me my whole life that God doesn't listen to me because I'm a sinner. But if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this was not for God, he could do nothing. His confidence was in one thing alone, in what Jesus Christ had done for him. He'd heard stories about other people experiencing things with God. He'd longed to be a part of their temple system for his whole life, but he couldn't go because he was unclean. He'd wanted to be a part of it so long. And now he has seen something, and he is a witness, and they're asking for his statement. And there is no way in hell that he is going to abandon the guy that just gave him sight. When you experience Jesus in a real way, you know it because there is nothing no one can do to shut you up. They can say anything. They can take away anything from you. They can threaten you with anything. Your parents can disown you. You will not care because you have experienced Jesus. There's another passage where Jesus heals another man who was blind. Jesus tells the man, don't tell anyone. Jesus himself told the guy, don't tell anyone that I healed you. The guy went out, told everyone. He just it says he went out and spread his fame. Even Jesus telling you to not tell other people about Jesus could not stop you from telling other people about Jesus when you have really experienced him and experienced him in your life. And when you understand that, it's incredible. And the amazing thing after this is, people, when they see you, if you have experienced God in a real way or you're searching for it, this is what they do to you. This is what happens. Throw it up there. This is what happens right now. It says, they answered him, you were born in utter sin, and would you teach us? And they cast him out. They said, I know who you were. You were that girl. I've seen your Facebook posts, girl. Don't go posting about Jesus now. I saw what you posted last week. There ain't no way that you've had some sort of change. Unfriend, cast out. You're in a club, you're in a group, you're doing things, you guys all think the same way. All of a sudden, Jesus comes to you and he just rubs mud in your eyes, and you wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, Jesus is real. You start telling your friends and they say, hey, there's another lunch table over there called the loser table. Go sit there. They just kick you out. You come home, maybe you come to Elevate and you experience something, and your parents, the only time they ever talk about Jesus is when they're mad at you, when they're swearing at you. And you come home and you say, I accepted Jesus in my heart for the first time. And they say, get out of the house. It's like, you're an alcoholic and you're telling me to get out of the house because I came home and now I believe in Jesus? And it's just like, people, when they hear this, it's either they love it and they say, yes, that's incredible, or they hate you. And they will cast you out. We never talk about this because we want to give you the cuddly, friendly Jesus. So that way, you grow up in the church and rock my, whatever your name is, Jesus is holding you, everything's going to be great. No. You're going to have people that are just going to spit on you and hate you and curse you and want you out of your life, out of their life, just because you say that you're following Jesus now. That's exactly what happened to this man. Jesus promises it. And this is what happens. He gets cast out and he's completely alone. He's out of their system. He's released from their system. They say, you can do whatever you want, just don't ever come back to us. His parents, he's out of the house. Think about this. This guy he was blind, and now he can see. And as a result of that, he lost his family. He lost the connection with people in the religious system that he'd probably always been wanting to have. He gets there the very first day he shows up, they kick him out. And then he loses his job. He can't beg anymore. Sometimes we're comfortable living in our blindness because we at least feel like we can control it a little bit. So he's out there completely on his system, on his own, and he's got two choices. He can either say, God, what the heck are you doing in my life? I wish I was still blind. Or he can say, I want to follow you, Jesus, wherever you are. I don't even know who you are. I don't even know where you are. Where are you? Come to me. I have a pretty strong feeling that second choice is what this guy took because of what happens next. It says that Jesus heard that they had cast him out. Jesus hears. Jesus knows. When you're getting trampled on at school, when your friends reject you, when things are not going wrong, Jesus knows. He can see it. He hears. He's got it through the grapevine. He knows what's going on. Just at the right time for this guy, he shows up. And having found him, he searched him out. He searched for him. He found him. Having found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? Basically, there's all these prophecies about a Son of Man, a Messiah that's going to come. He says, do you believe that he's out there? Do you believe that there will be a Messiah? He answered, I love this, and who is he, sir, that I may believe in him? He's so open. He's so broken. He's got nothing. He's got no system. He says, what do I do with the rest of my life? I don't know. Yeah, tell me where to go. Sometimes you need to get in that position where you've lost everything, and that's the only way that Jesus will get your attention. Maybe you're here tonight and you're at the bottom of your rope and you're just saying, man, I have lost everything. I have nowhere to go. Jesus is right there. He's right next to you. He wants to know you. And so Jesus says, you have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you. He said, Lord, I believe, and he worshiped him. He'd heard Jesus' voice. Jesus had touched him, but when he saw him, he worshiped. when you see Jesus and you understand who he is, and he's like, look at all these things this man had done for him, and he never even seen Jesus. God has been orchestrating your life, developing it, trying to get you in a position where just at the right time, you see Jesus. And you can either worship him or you can ask for your old life back. You could say, man, that system I have is great. I want to keep going. But at every person, you're going to have a point. Maybe it's one point that you get in your whole life. Maybe there's going to be multiple opportunities. Maybe Jesus will keep showing up every single day. Like, how about now? Ta-da! You're like, oh, wait, Jesus. Like, or it's just one time he shows up at the right time and he's there and you're like, yes, I need you right now. I need to worship you. The one point I have, and this is like a rambling long point that doesn't have a flow, but it's awesome. Following Jesus means that eventually you will need to release their system and enter Jesus' system. Jesus talked about how he is the light of the world. Right after this passage, he talks about how he is the good shepherd, how you can follow Jesus and you can know him and he will watch out for you and you can be in his flock. You can follow him and know who he is in his clique, in his club, in his group, in his family. You can know who he is. And there comes a point where you need to say, I'm sick of this system that I'm trying to fit into. You guys know, even if you feel like you've created your system, you're not even a part of the very own system that you've created, right? You guys, you're in your clubs, you're in your groups, and you're trying so hard to fit in. So hard. I mean, I was just in high school a couple of years ago, and I know it. You're so hard. You just try to find an identity in some sort of group, something. You know, maybe it's people, or maybe it's in a way that you deal with your pain. And when you come to Jesus and you see him and you see his system compared to your system, there just isn't a comparison anymore. You see, Jesus, when I'm in your system, there is no way that alcohol is going to fix the problem when I see what you can do. There is no way that relationships with guys or girls is going to fix the problem that I have. There is no way that my system of cutting myself or abusing myself is going to fix the problem that I have of wanting to be known and wanting to be loved. That just to feel alive. When you feel alive in Jesus' system, you know that there's no going back. You can't go back. There's no way to go back. There's nowhere to go. You look at it, you're just like, that is death. When you've experienced the life, that transition from going from death to life, just because Jesus showed up in your life, there is no going back. And there comes a point where you need to say, I'm all in on your system, Jesus. I'm done trying to fit in with my friends. I'm done trying to do things their way. I can't do it. I need to just fully immerse myself and follow you. And maybe, this guy didn't even have a choice on what system he was in. Other people told him, you're out of the system. Maybe for you, you'll go along trying so hard to be in the system for so long that it'll take other people kicking you out for you to be open to Jesus' system. Other times, maybe you just get fed up with it and you say, I'm out, I'm looking, I need something else. I need something real. I need something real. And there comes a time where you need to choose which system you are in.